Continuing our exploration of the lab for 3ds Max, and I want to dedicate a couple of videos to creating texture plugins. And just like we did in the previous videos, I want to start off by creating something very simple, and then we can move on to more complex and usable things later on. So let me just start up my material editor by pressing M, and I'm going to go to Maps and assign a new diffuse color texture. As you can see, there is a lab texture option available, and this is a default template for creating lab texture plugins. By default, just like any other lab plugin, we have my input, which is a default input connected to nothing, and then we have the edit plugin button, which I will click to bring up the lab editor. The initial state of the plugin contains two inputs. First one is the coordinate input of type vector2, which is a two-dimensional vector, and the second type is my input, which we see in the user interface. There is also a single output, which expects a vector3 value, a color value, or a floating point value. For example, if I drag this floating point input directly into my output, I can now control the value of the resulting texture, and we can see that it is monotonous throughout the whole texture, and that is because we're not really using anything for the coordinate input. And this texture is evaluating, or rather this texture plugin is evaluating a single sample point of the texture, and this sample point is provided by the coordinate vector2. If we right click on it, we can also see that it has a couple of component inputs which we can add. There is a filter size, a normal and a position input. Normal and position inputs provide us with a way of accessing the position on a object inside the scene that is currently being rendered for this texture. And if I just wire it directly into my output, because it is a vector3, we can do that. Vector3 will just be converted to a color. So I will leave it here, and in the next video we will do something a little bit more interesting.